All right, this is Travis Cody and the Victory Podcast. I am happy to welcome Dr. Abe, as he is known today on the show. Uh, Doctor, thank you for being here. For those that our audience that aren't quite familiar with you, you want to give them just a little quick summary of who you are, where you've been, and what makes you excited in life today.
Good to see you. Thank you for inviting me, Travis. Dr. Abe, as you said, this is my nickname, really. It's the actual name, Dr. Abe Khoureis, Abraham Khoureis. I am based in Los Angeles. Uh, I do I do whatever I can. It's like everything possibility that I can do. I do. I'm considered multi-talented because the things I do. I deal with leadership, business management. I'm a professor. I teach MBA classes. I teach organizational behavior. I have a small business here and there, actually 7 businesses I do have under my belt. I manage them through delegation of authority. I write on LinkedIn. I have few books. Uh, I have the uh, Hollywood Dream. Hollywood Dream is for someone interested in getting into Hollywood. I have the Compassionate Leadership, which is a model in a pyramid that allows individuals plus aspiring leaders to act with compassion. Compassion, it's innately within us, but it has to be developed. So the book guides you how to become a compassionate individual and a compassionate leader. This is really what I am. I play sport every now and then. I like to read. I read as much as I can, and I am humbly put together. I don't have an ego. Just down to earth individual.
So I love you're definitely humble. I think last I counted, you had 8 books, or did I miscount that?
Yes,
So I
yes,
you have got a
yes.
couple of books. I got 7 businesses. What I find fascinating, we were talking before we started the show, is the fact that you've got successful businesses and you've got these, this philosophy on leadership,
Yes.
and you've also got a Hollywood side. And obviously, me being a Hollywood guy, that's always near and dear to my heart. So let's just chat about that a little bit, and then I'm going to
Sure.
dive into some questions about your leadership. But how did those two things come together with leadership and
Together.
Hollywood?
If I tell you what I do, you say, how did this happen? How did this happen? The truth is, I don't know. They just happen. They happen because I want them to happen. I don't, I'm a Pisces.
Mm,
So Pisces tend to dream. They have imaginative side to them. But the good thing about me is I don't dream. I don't wish. I do. This is really my personality. If I wish to have something, I just do it. So let's say in LA, the businesses I do, whether real estate, insurance, background check for companies, a notary school, like businesses, like would never think that anybody would do, but I do them and I make them successful. And then we have the talent agency. I'm a Hollywood talent franchise agent, a SAG-AFTRA franchised agent. The agency cater only to unionized individuals and professionals in the industry. Um, how it did start really with the industry is I went to film school.
mm,
I went to film school. I got my degrees, and then Hollywood is who you know.
of course.
So I worked on several productions behind the scene, and then with time, you realize you really need to have something to fall on. That was early in life, in my younger years. And then I said, let me go to business school. So I went to business school. I finished my Bachelor of Science, Master, PhD. After graduation, you do like several programs as well. So education was really the key for me to advance and
Mm,
get the knowledge and know-how. And then with time, because I've always liked movies, although I'm doing the business and I still have connections. I'm a good connector, and I connect with people authentically, sincerely. You don't need anything from them. As I help others and advise and advocate for helping others without receiving anything in return, Also, when you communicate with others, you don't need to take advantage of them. Just give them authentic relationships, authentic understanding of who they are without judging. I suspend my judgment on a lot of things. Also, I have a very good, strong belief system. I just do not practice it when I deal with others. I let them be. I have clients that I help. I have executive that I manage. So with time, I said, well, let's go to see what we can do in Hollywood. So I approached several of my students that became stars in Hollywood because we started this late 89, early 90s.
Wow.
This is when I was in the business. And I did a little animation film here and there, you know. So with time, you build these relationships. These relationships, they did not go to business school. They continued in Hollywood. They continued in the business and they established themselves in the business. With that, you get credentials. So I got the credentials needed to be within the SAG system.
Mm.
That allowed me to open my own agency, to also serve as a representative of these talent, where I guide them with the know-how I have from the business side, not only just entertainment, from the compassionate side, where I tell them, hey, you become successful, but you also take care of yourself, because with fame comes misery, really.
Yeah.
So I tell you to be grounded. When you read my book, um, or advices I give to them is, you become successful to the best of your abilities. Whatever opportunities you have, grab it, take advantage of it, but do not at the expense of who you are as an individual. So this is how it was. And that was about 11 years back, or to 12 years now. I have the agency. I've been within the SAG system, SAG after system. So this is how it really started in a very short narration.
Well, so I'll have some conversations about that. So my mentor, he wrote a book. It was called "The New Art and Science of Filmmaking: How to Fix the Accidental Industry."
Okay.
And he made a big argument, and so we'll have a conversation about that, because me having my own business outside of Hollywood and looking at Hollywood from a fundamental business perspective, Hollywood just does a lot of really dumb stuff. And then they wonder why they're struggling. But I want to back up here for a second and mention something, because you talked about how fame can be notorious. You know what? Something I've had conversations with my wife about is, when somebody comes to work for one of your companies, and for most companies in general, when you come on board, there's usually some sort of employee handbook with, here's the expectations, here's how to manage yourself, here's, spells out like, you're in this new world now, and here's how to be prepared for it. And despite all of the just ridiculous disasters that have happened in Hollywood from people not being able to deal with fame, I'm just shocked that no one at this point in time hasn't created a program, especially for younger actors that are either kids, teens, or early 20s, on, this is what is coming your way with fame, and this is what it means, and here's how to navigate it in a healthy, safe way. It's every time you see a 25 or 26-year-old actor that's either gotten addicted to drugs or alcohol, or you see they're having mental health issues, and it's like, and there's no one reaching out to help these people. And that's one of the sides of Hollywood that I don't miss, was the fact that somebody hits the A list, and suddenly you've got all this like entourage that comes on, and all they're doing is they're just propping that person up to try to get as much as they can from them. And
But
I would
this,
one of my goals for the future is to write a book specifically for people coming in going, okay, you're starting to get some recognition, here's what's about to happen to you, and here's how to prepare for it, so that you don't you don't lose your mental health for this. But anyway, it's a bit of tangent. It's not why we're here for our show.
no, that's good. That's good. But you see, Travis is not only Hollywood. This is in all industries that fame enters it. Whenever you have fame, regardless of what in the modeling business, is as a business person. Look at today we're observing Elon Musk. He's the most successful, rich, but in the same time he's becoming famous. This fame, take it from me now, as someone who knows the industry, this fame is going to enter into his mind. If he has an ego, he's going to be in trouble. If he is not, he has no ego and his grounded, he may be he adjusts to it, and with time, fame fades. But so this issue you're talking about, really, it's in all industries. Whenever there's fame, even within own family on a micro level, if you become famous, you become level-headed. It's the ego that comes into. You're talking about an ego that you do not know how to manage and control. Now, I want you to write this book that you're talking about, that book. But in the same
Celebrity
time,
Survival Guide. I've already got the title.
good. But this book what you're talking about, I already have it in Hollywood Dream. At least I have some chapters. You can use some of the chapters I talk when I talk about,
We'll co-author.
probably co-author. But the point is, I know what you're saying, and I think the movement has started. You have it in mind, and you're going to put it into paper. I have it in paper now. Hopefully, as people know its advantages, people will take advantage of that advantage and then open a school or some sort of prevention program that will make you leveled as you become famous in Hollywood or otherwise.
Yeah.
But Hollywood is really the place where you see the stars, icons are built, and they either inspire or they defeat their fame by becoming a casualty of war, as we say it, or casualty of fame. Yeah, it's very interesting. I kudos to you if you think like that. I think that's a compassionate approach to how to elevate society and uplift others. So please do write that book. Um,
You know, I think a lot of people knock the old sort of studio system of the 30s, 40s, 50s. But that was one of the things. So I just read Tom Selleck's memoir,
okay.
and he talked about he was one of the last people to come out of the studio age, and he was under contract. But he
Yeah.
talked about what that meant and how like the level of preparation that when you went on like it wasn't that the studio just put you on like, hey, we're going to give you 500 a week and you're just going to sit around and do nothing. Like they had you dancing and sword fighting, and
There
they
are
had
expectations.
classes, they had press trainings, they had how to take,
Absolutely.
right, and that was one of the things that kind of got lost when the studio system went away. But yeah, maybe we'll figure out how to bring it.
No, there are expectations. It was a business model that is working, and there are expectations of the performance and actors you have to do. But they developed you, though. Tom Selleck, probably he would thank such system because it made him the person he is.
Yeah, no, he
Yeah,
talked about how
yeah,
what that meant and how it helped him be prepared.
absolutely.
So at what point in your career did your compassionate leadership model on that pyramid, when did that start to form?
Formed at 21. When it started from an early stage, I've always been a person that cared for others. I remember, I think my mom really has something to do with it when we went to school, if you have an orange, oranges you put lunchtime, they say, take this one for your neighbor because he doesn't have a father or this or that. So that caring for others, the caring for others and being mindful of the environment you're in, that you may have something they may not have, started at an earlier stage. And I think parent had played a part of it, especially mother. Now, with time, of course, I'm not an angel, but with time, you started realizing the alternative model is really not working.
Hmm.
I have a Forbes article revamping the capitalist system. How do you revive capitalism? By inserting compassion into it. How do you make it survive? By inserting compassion. Capitalist system is a good system in a way, right?
Sure.
But it's a ruthless system.
Yeah.
To make it thrive, to make it continue, to make it sustain, what's happening now is you kill others, you deprive them of opportunities, you don't allow them to succeed. If you go overseas, you occupy and capture and kill and maim and everything in the name of democracy, in the name of capitalism, right? That's not the way it's supposed to be. So the idea started formulating at an earlier stage. But then during COVID, really, I had the time to sit down together and do the research needed my model is based on the research. It's not just I thought about it. No, I had people like you, people who are compassionate and who are not compassionate, send them surveys, interviews, and say, what do you think? I put a survey together, questionnaires, interview, follow up, and then I received all these answers. And as you do with a PhD, you do with this. You sort these answers and you put them into categories. And I came up with probably 5 categories. And the surprising aspect of it is 70% of people in societies, they go with what the leader would inspire them to do. So if the leader is a compassionate individual, the 70% of people, of followers, staff, employees, citizens, they will go with that leader.
That is a huge percentage.
That's why societies are always convoluted like this, because the majority are a silent majority. I mean, if you have a leader that supports racism, slavery, would you think the slave owners were slave owners because they're powerful individuals? No way. It was the 70% that led the way. Because why? Their living depends on such thing. So 70%, and then you know how many percent are really natural leaders that they will go with the right thing, they do the good thing, ethical. 4%. 4, yeah, 3.99, about 4%. 4% of societies, of members of any organization. That's based on hopefully a survey that I think it's because I kind of did not sway these numbers in any way. And I believe even if I do it now, it will have the same number. Because otherwise, if we don't have such a powerful number, 3% or 4% still good in a society that is led by the, masses. You lead them the way you want. So that's why you have alternative programs in place that, hey, I cannot do this. These 4% are powerful. They are in the higher echelon of leadership. And if we have the pyramid, they're in the top pyramid. So they have the money and they have the influence. They may also sway some of these 70% because they have abilities. So early in 2020, I put together the first pyramid, and the pyramid has 7 levels. Starts with self-compassion, and self-compassion, it goes in line with capitalism, that love yourself, become the best you can become. I added a little bit tweak to it. You become the best you can become in order to serve others.
That's
for
nice.
you to say, I'm going to help you, you have to be better first, right? I want to educate you to have to be better educated person. I want to lift you, uplift you, and make you an individual that has means. I'm going to have more means so I can establish the businesses I want to. This is with self-compassion, health, mind, control, all that mentally better. You're not swayed easily. The compassionate leadership I envision is not a weak individual, is an individual that really a change agent in a society that is very convoluted, a society that is hurting others for the benefit of the few. So, and then you go to the next of kin. So now here, kind of changing the society a little bit in the thinking of society. Let's care for our parents, right? Let's take care of our moms as they get older, and let's put them in comparison homes and not care for them. Let's care for our siblings, our brothers and sisters, right? Our spouses. Let's be kind to them. So you slowly but surely change the mindset of society by giving them ideas. And the model is really a model, so you can do it. I mean, in the books, I write how you can do it. I give them call to action. And then we jump to the local environment. The local environment, that's the third line of the pyramid. In the local environment, you care for the environment, the immediate environment you're in. So first, you take care of yourself, take care of the family, and then you move to the environment. The family, when you take care of them, this is going to be your base. That's going to be your tribe. They're going to lift you up as you go up, because as they believe in you, and believe in your ideas, they're going to also be your followers, the people who would say, okay, let's protect you. Because on the opposite side, my gosh, there are ruthless individuals. They're waiting to punish you. They don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to change that status quo. In maintaining that status quo is very important to the few that is controlling us, it's controlling society into not behaving in a way that is humane, right? So then we go to that local environment, we take care of the houses of worship, we see if there are clinics needed, we patronize businesses, we patronize schools, we involve and engage within the local environment. And then we go to the organization. In the organization, we go to the shareholders. We say, okay, the old model says maximizing the profit of the shareholders. That's good. We promise you to do that. But then we want you to think to also make these employees thrive, not survive. Make the consumer in mind as we create a product so they can benefit. It has value to them, the consumer, the customer. And then to the leadership, we're going to also reward you for your good deed. So it really involves the shareholders, leadership, employees, and consumer slash customer. And then we go to the community itself and we engage in the community. That's the fifth level. Engage the community on a larger scale than the local community, but the same concept. Involve yourself. And then after the sixth one is the society. The society is where you become a model citizen in a way, compassionate, still, as we say, change agent, but you're more involved in politics, business, corporate responsibility, and being just a model to the next society, a society that care for the weakest link in it, plus make it thrive, and not necessarily compete with others, collaborate with others for a better human experience. And then you jump to the peak. The peak is the serving others. That's where a noble leader is created. That noble leader will serve society and everybody in their environments without receiving anything in return. One caution. As we jump to the pyramid, I was researching this. I saw the pyramid of Abraham Maslow, right?
Yep.
Remember? Yep. Based on needs,
Sure.
safety, and then self-actualization or whatever, you go through these 5, 6 levels. And then I look at the other side. What else looks like this pyramid? The pyramid of Giza in Egypt. There's a story. I always like to say it, although it's not relevant, but I want to bring a point. In the pyramid of Giza, one time in history, there was a prophet called Moses, an individual in history, a reformer of sort, regardless of what faith, but an individual came to a leader that called the Pharaoh, right? You know the history?
Yep.
So Pharaoh said to his people, what is he talking about? They said, he says there is such thing as God. Where's this God? He said, in the skies. So Pharaoh, the ruthless one, the one we want to fight and we don't want him ruling us, he said, build me something that I can reach this God of Moses and fight him. He so arrogant, so full of ego. He wants to fight this huge God that Moses came with this kindness. Now, they didn't build Giza, but they built something of sort of Giza. I wasn't able to find out where is this pyramid, but they built him a pyramid so he was able to go to this peak and look for the God of Moses. So, daunted on me, I said, while we reach this peak and we do master everything that we need to master, at the top peak, the peak where it's occupied by the Pharaoh kind of people. This is why I want to bring to people who become compassionate. You're going to be challenged. You be careful. Be ready to put your boxing gloves on. The minute you reach that peak, it's not empty. There's people in that place. They're going to fight you. They're going to hurt you. They're going to badmouth you. They're going to use anything against you to drive you away from this compassionate leadership approach that you're thinking, because they're already occupying that space. They're not in the lower levels, they're on top.
Yeah.
So be careful as you become compassionate. It's not like, oh, I'm compassionate, how sweet it is. No, you're going to have people that will really manage um, to maintain the status quo that they're enjoying. So this is really shortly what the model is all about.
That's a fantastic analogy, by the way. So how how are you going about bringing this leadership model into the businesses that you run right now with the CEOs you have and the CFOs and COOs?
So remember, mine is really a smaller scale businesses than I wish to have larger scales, right? So it could work on a smaller scale businesses by becoming the model of compassion. Just tell them this is how we approach our customers. I can bring it to consumers more than my employee. I mean, employees would be, they already know what it is. So delegation of authority comes with responsibility and accountability. So they already know comes at compassion, but not a meek compassion. Compassion, ladies and gentlemen, we do not say we pity. We don't pity. It's not a pity. It's an approach where you serve with authentic way of dealing with them. You're changing the status quo, but putting in place a compassionate approach to leadership, to society, to companies, to organization. You still become this individual that want to change society and make them thrive, but without saying, "Oh, it's a pity." It's not a pity. These people don't need pity. They need you to uplift them. So the way I do it is first I delegate authority. I'm good in delegating authority, and I learned to delegate authority. By the way, you need to have no ego, because some of these responsibility comes with power. Power comes with influence. Influence comes with what ego can start getting into you, right? Saying, okay, I'm powerful, I'm this, I'm that. So you have to have no ego, and you have to get the discipline by actually giving some of your power away. Because delegating of authority is taking some of your power and granting it to others.
Mm.
And that's what it really means, is you give this authority you have to others, and they actually pursue the authority that you granted them. So how do you do it with compassion? By just telling them the model I'm talking about, what we just talked, what we mentioned. Everybody deserves to be respected, everybody to be honored, everybody deserves to live a good life, a good quality of life. There is also another model I want to share with you and your audience, the concept of suspend your judgment.
Mm.
I love that. Suspend your judgment is when you suspend your judgment, you allow people to actually say something. You allow people to actually give you feedback. Because if you're gonna put your belief system as a way of communicating with others, you're gonna perceive what or receive and perceive everything they're saying based on your belief system. So if they said something you don't like based on that system, you may become offended and you start saying, no, this is not the way it should be. No. Suspend that belief system. Let them talk. If it's a feedback, they're going to be more flexible and transparent and engaging, because they know you're going to take it with stride, that you're going to say, okay, I appreciate what you do. And the other way is you enjoy the human experience.
Mm.
Another one, every race, every culture, every people that created on this earth, then and now, they believe, each member of that society, they believe they're better than the other people. You talk to a black person, black is beautiful, and our culture is better. You look to a Caucasian or white, same thing. Indian, same thing. Arabs, Middle Eastern, Muslims, Christians, we are the solution. We are the saved people. Why? What's wrong with the others? So what I'm saying is every culture, because I teach culture in my classes,
Mm.
and I know how culture are built. I know how to destroy a culture. I know how to sustain a culture. I know how to work with the culture to make it thrive. So when you work with others, you work according to their belief system without imposing yours, because you're gathering feedback, and at the end, you're going to make a decision, not on their feedback, on the feedback of many. So it's okay to listen. It's okay not to say, "Oh, I don't believe in that." They're not asking you to believe or not. They're just giving you feedback, so take it. Use it or don't use it, it's your call, because you're the leader in this. But suspend the judgment you have, whether it's educational,
My
whether it's
co-host
based.
just showed up. She's late.
Hey, what's her name?
You know, this is Diana.
Hey,
She's
Diana. I should introduce her to.
she's like, hey, pay attention to me.
I should introduce her to Precious. I want to send you the photo of Precious. Precious is a tuxedo.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I will send you the photo. I love that Precious. I went to overseas to London. So anyhow, I went to a place where I can teach in school, and I left him behind for a while. When I came back, so I'm sleeping. Before, he never done that. Before, he stays right and left. So he comes to the bed, right? And he sleeps there. First night, I said, okay, it's sweet. Second night, sweet. I said, what's going on with them? They're amazing. They are amazing. They're not animals. I don't think they're animals. They're really amazing.
My wife and I don't have children. This is our children.
Isn't it? I mean, isn't that something?
Yeah. Not
It's
to
really
distract us, but there you go. The podcast derailed by my co-host. It was like, hey, it's cold. I can curl up here. So, you know,
I'm
you
gonna
said
send it.
I would love to talk about the culture thing a little bit, and then you said something a minute ago I thought was really interesting about the suspend your judgment. You know, I had somebody on in a previous episode, Curtis Robinson, and he was 20 years in the Army,
Mhm.
and he was talking about how he was able to do that as a leader when he was working with people. And he used the example of there was somebody under his command who was a sergeant, was leading other people, and they just did not get along at all. He didn't like the guy didn't like him. And typically in the military, what ends up happening is your leader, if they don't like you, is going to do everything they can in your performance reviews to make sure that you can't get a promotion.
Absolutely.
He was the opposite. And he said, I didn't look at the man. I looked at, was he doing the job he was supposed to do? And he's like, and he was doing a fantastic job. And so in his performance review, you know, he gave him a glowing review and actually recommended him for a promotion. And that guy ended up getting promoted. And later that person came into his office and was like, sir, you don't like me. And I didn't think, and why would you give me such a glowing review? And he said that, right? It's like, personally, we don't get along. I get it. He's like, but you're here to do a job. And when I look at the job you're doing everything you need to do, and you're doing it at a high level of proficiency. So it doesn't matter my personal. I just thought that was such an evolved that, you know, now we're talking about it. I'm like, that there was somebody who was practicing compassionate leadership.
Absolutely.
So
I have a level of certainty that this individual that was promoted, he's going to model the behavior of this guest of yours.
yeah.
Somehow.
So culture, I would love to talk a little bit about that. And especially if you're in England talking about it. So I had a really interesting experience with an African friend of mine, lives in LA. And during the riots of 2020, I was having a conversation with him, and he was really depressed. And I was like, man, what's going on? And he said, his comment was, I feel like I lost my sense of blackness. That was what he said.
Very interesting.
Because he lived in Hollywood Hills and he's surrounded by really rich white neighbors. And so I thought, I'm like, that's a very interesting thing. So I'm like, well, let's explore, what do you mean by that? And so he was trying to explain it to me a little bit about, you know, the culture of being Black. And I thought even that was interesting, because I said, well, Mike, I can understand, especially in this moment in time and everything that's going on, and you know, and I can appreciate how you're feeling. And I was like, but that's like, what does that mean, right? It'd be like coming to a person in America going, what's the culture of being a white person in America? And so, you know, the example I used him, I'm like, well, would Eddie Murphy's kids who grew up in a 12,000 square foot home in Beverly Hills, if you ask them what it meant to be Black, are they going to say this? They can have the same answer as your cousins who live on East Side Detroit, or
Absolutely.
your other cousins who live in Harlem, New York. And he was like, no. And I was like, and see, that's the interesting thing, right? You have three black people, and they're what they would say the cult, what it means, the culture being black. It's not about the race, it's about where you live, right? Beverly Hills has a culture, Miami has a culture, New York has a culture, you know, Texas has a culture. And I sometimes think that in the United States, we sort of, because we are one country, but we are essentially a bunch of little mini nations. Each state's its own little thing, that we lose sight of what that means. And, you know, the good example of that is like you have England, and then 30 miles away, you have France. Two entirely different cultures. And people go, yeah, that makes sense. One's England, one's France. And going, yeah, but we sort of have that same thing from, say, I live in Las Vegas, and you go 2 hours away to Utah, two entirely different cultures, right? And we're only 100 miles away. And I
See,
sometimes feel that Americans in particular, they don't understand culture enough to sort of appreciate it. So I would love to have some of your thoughts on culture,
yes,
what that means, and some of the things
yes.
you've seen.
See, what is missing is the celebration of culture, celebration of the differences.
That's
The
fantastic.
American culture is a culture. Generally, we know it's an American. You're Westernized. You're an Americanized. Sure, you may look differently than the mainstream, but you still have the same culture.
Mm,
But in the same time, this individual that happened to be from the Black community, he doesn't see what he is raised on or believe on as the main culture, as part of the mainstream.
sure.
Why? Because it's not the mainstream. Because it's a culture within a culture. You can see yourself by celebrating what you have. The minute, an example, when you go to a party and then you start bringing your own food from the culture, a custom from the culture. Why do we celebrate Native Indians? We put their own clothes on and to try to revive the culture that has died or put into in a corner somewhere. So the same thing, an individual that happened to be Black, happened to be Asian, happened to be Middle Eastern, happened to be any other race that is not the mainstream culture, even within the Caucasian community, they are Jewish community members that they don't believe they are part of the mainstream Christian Protestant culture.
Mm,
So you have variety of cultures within the main culture.
yeah.
Everybody say, okay, how come this administration doesn't look like me? You're part of this American fabric, but the administration as it's formed or previously formed doesn't look like me. Why? I don't belong? Belonging is part of encouragement of leadership and compassionate, because with compassionate leadership, you create also um, collaboration and also belonging.
Mm,
So what do we do here? It becomes a must of the overall leader or organization, CEOs and management, to celebrate the culture of these individuals. So you bring them, oh, not necessarily, I'm not saying put their own language on your brochure, because otherwise culture is kind of gonna be mixed culture. You have a pure culture, which is a white American, Caucasian American, certain race, certain faith. If somebody is not from that faith, they'll be happy because, oh, we're white, we're Caucasian, we're this. But actually, that's not their culture. The culture is not meant for them. It's meant for the mainstream, that the larger community. Everybody else that comes to this culture becomes part of the culture. They call it assimilation. You
mm,
assimilate to the culture and it becomes part of who you speak English. You practice whatever they practice. You enjoy what they enjoy, but you still have your own culture. A Black person will never be, Middle Eastern will never be, a Filipino, Asian, Korean, Chinese will never be, because they look different
mm,
from the main culture. So how do you make this culture a melting pot for all? By involving activities in program that say this culture is the new culture. You change the status quo in the face of the culture by making it a melting pot.
Wow.
The melting pot becomes a changing of the culture as we know it. And that's why now you have, well, he won because everybody voted for him because the alternative was no good. Now, that's why the people who supported President Trump, they're not for the culture as all the other races. White. You know, he bring them the culture that in the America that they know, the America of their grandfathers.
Yeah.
That's why he succeeded on the mainstream and he became successful because he also received the alternatives and the other supporting elements of it, the non-white, because they did not believe President Biden and his aid agency did the right thing, ethically or morally or legally for that matter. So they just want to get rid of them. And the whole culture kind of gave a mandate to the president, the new president, to create a culture that we love, culture that based on what you're saying, you're promising. But if it wasn't the mandate, the people who voted for him are people who believe to bring back the culture. Did America lose its soul as a Caucasian? No, I don't think so. But there are people who are not necessarily fighting, but they want to share the same pie within the culture.
Sure.
Do we allow them or not? It depends on the leadership. You allow them, and this is how it's happening now. On the president level, no more is going to be Christian, white, or not white, I mean, Caucasian Christian, Protestant, or Presbyterian, or whatever is the specific race or faith that president was. Now it's open for all. You do not be surprised if 10 years or 20 years or 15 years from now, you will see a Chinese American in the presidency, meaning Chinese, I mean, an American, but Chinese looking Chinese in the White House. You do not be surprised. You already saw the black, you already saw the aspiration of a black woman. So the culture has changed in that specific area of power. But what's going to happen that will never change is above the line. You would never, because every culture has knights, Knights, right? Gaths.
Nice. I love it.
Knights of the culture to sustain it, to protect it, to maintain it. They call them deep state, they call them protectors, they call whatever they call them. But the culture will always, because it's powerful culture, will always allow. Remember, we talked about the military.
Mm.
In the military, it's a hierarchy. You do what we want, and then you whatever. Now, your guest was below the line. Below the line, the president in below, there is democracy. There is decentralized authority.
Yes.
Centralized is you do what we do above the line. We give that we meet above the line, whatever is the deep state is, whoever is still maintaining this 1800 culture and belief system that we have to protect America as the founding father founded it or wanted it to be, that will always stay. But below the line, because the culture is changing, these people you brought in as immigrants and non-immigrants, they want to have a voice. They want to have part of the spy, you're calling the American dream. And they don't want to just be below the president. They want to become above the president. So what you do is you're limiting their access by giving them something to chew on. Okay, this is yours. This is your share. This is this. So you kind of allow them to succeed, allow them to thrive. The same thing with the organization. You give enough to the employees to thrive, and so they feel part of that organization. You're meeting their needs. You motivate them. They achieve. They perform. You meet their needs. They vote. Wow, that's why you're going to see so many people in Congress this time, or probably next time. People that resembles the people that is part of this culture. To sustain a culture, it takes a lot of efforts. It takes a lot of efforts how to change the makeup of a specific community or society to allow its people to say, okay, we have representative. DEI. That's on a employment business level. DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity, or equity inclusion. The large companies, when they bring somebody into the culture and they want to change the culture, they're happy all these years who they have. Specifically, probably a group of females are happy, but they don't have any male. I just use the gender instead of race. So they don't have any male in their fold. No, not in the leadership, not in most of the employees also female. And you see it. This is discrimination, but most people, they don't talk about it. So what do you do? The leadership above the line, leadership say, okay, what do we do? Because we don't want the community flag us and start not patronizing us. And if they don't support us, we lose business and credibility and you know. So what they do, they start bringing the voice of the organization is going to be, depends, could be a community that's serving Black community, a Black person, white person, Asian person. Have you ever seen so many Chinese on television? Now you see. Have you ever seen so many? You see what they want you to see, but behind the scene and above the line will always be maintained. Because the culture has to be maintained. These are, the CEO comes as an employee, a president comes as an employee. The reason they fought Trump, not because he is corrupt only or whatever it is. The reason they fought him because Trump became the culture. It's Trumpism. Trump is America. America is Trump. They don't want that. They want America, America. So the deep state attempted to fight him. They attempted. I'm not certain, but if you think about it, probably even the assassination, probably part of the deep state. I have no idea, but
Sure.
could be.
Yeah.
So they wanted to put a limit to his Trump access to the culture, but they can't, because a powerful marketer, powerful individual that was able to change so many things. And I hope and I wish his presidency is going to be a good presidency to the country, because we do need to have.
Sure.
A,
Yeah, I've always told everyone that, whether, love him or hate him, you can't argue that 100 years from now, Trump will be looked upon as probably one of the greatest marketers in the history of the world.
oh, absolutely. Even now, absolutely.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I really pray that what he went through is going to change him, and I'm going to put compassion. I promise I'm going to send him. I'm good active, and when I say become part of the community and society and active, I don't just talk about it, I do it. I send him several letters about compassionate leadership. I told him, I also sent Biden. I said, what are you doing? I mean, we're so disappointed. I swear, I do send it, although I mean, I'm just a humble individual. But when you preach about compassion and you want to be part of society and community, well, how are you gonna say this? You send to the people of power. You speak truth to power and tell them, listen. So you send a reminder, say, please put someone in your administration that believe in compassion with your might and all of this. You have to balance this. That's what I sent him, and I hope for him.
There was a conversation or an interview with Ronald Reagan. I know it was an interview, and they also put it in his memoir where he talked about, he went into the presidency with certain goals and aspirations, and then he was only in there a year and he got shot, and he was within minutes of dying, and he was in the hospital. I think he ended up being in the hospital for 10 days or something like that. It was a pretty long recovery, and he talked about how being that close to death completely shifted what he felt now he was supposed to do with the office that he held. And yes. And the reason I bring that up is somebody was asking me, who's one of my friends who's not a Trump supporter, didn't vote for Trump, and he was asking me about it, about what I thought about the results of the election, and that was my comment was, I'm like, I can't really imagine someone coming as close to death as he did, 2 millimeters.
Yeah, sadly.
That does not, I don't care how much ego you have, that fundamentally has got to rattle you enough to change how you look at things. Like you said, whether or not that's going to be for the good or the bad, okay, we've got a little bit ahead of us to see. But so the compassionate leadership, when you're doing your research, are there any real world examples of people that you can point towards and go, this person is an example of compassionate leadership?
Yeah, I mean, it's also mixed with servant leadership. On a business level, we have really an acquaintance of mine, a colleague also, I consider him a friend, Gary Ridge. He managed WD-40,
Oh, wow.
and through the servant leadership model for 30 years. I had him on and I interviewed him. I brought him to my class as a guest speaker as well. And he also had an influence on my thinking as I listen and stuff. So yeah, he did. He used the servant leadership slash compassionate leadership. I expanded on all the models. The compassionate leadership, when you read the book, I'm gonna send you a copy. When you read the book, I compare it to all the leadership models and how it improves it.
Mm.
So compassionate leadership improves servant leadership. It improves it. It improves transactional leadership. It improves situational leadership. It improves even transformational leadership.
Wow.
Compassionate leadership improves it. So yeah, so you have that one, Gary in corporate America, and you have so many others that they use compassion, kindness. You have an example in a hospital. You have Glendale Adventist. You've been in LA, you know, Glendale Adventist Hospital. I mean, it's based on caring for others and using God as the stimuli they use everywhere time you go to their hospital or pass through the halls. They have um, pictures with words. God is compassion. God is this. God is this, and we care for compassion. And they treat that's the ideal way. The message of that specific institution is to care for others. Now, is it practiced? I don't know if they actually do, if they actually train their employees or remind them, because I've also had bad experience, not an individual one, but I heard some of the employees, they do not really follow the message, just a job for them. But the overall is a good culture to care. When you see a church or a houses of worship, they're not just out of the vacuum. These are institutions in the nonprofit business. They use care and compassion when they care for the homeless, when they feed them, when they give them clothes. Do you think they're just like their charity work? No, these are a business. A business happened to be in the nonprofit business. So there, even for business, there are so many others that you can have in research. Societies, meaning countries, they're very hard to say. Very hard to say. The system itself is compassionate system. I'm, no country that I consider it based on what I believe is a compassion approach to it, but they have
Yes.
elements.
Anyway, we're working towards it.
Yeah, working towards it. There are elements within these countries and societies that are considered compassionate as we define it, but hopefully they can improve. I mean, the idea behind a book like mine or the work you do is to inspire others to become. Are we going to succeed in this life? I don't know. Has it been attempted in the past? I believe it does. And people always believed in compassion, even religions, uh, houses of worship, kindness, empathy. But no, nobody ever put it in a model. I put it in a model. I put it in an actual working model. Hopefully, it will, when leaders would look at it, they would work on it and use it as a model to make it a part of the culture, part of the system. But it's always been there. But the bad thing about it, the people that on the peak of power, and the one I told you about, they control everything. So now we have to fight the fight to make it better.
We're up there. So for somebody who's watching the episode, they're liking the idea of the compassionate leadership model. Where can they go to learn more about that? Obviously, you have your book, but
Sure. I mean, you Google me, Doctor, if you can put the name there. I mean, my name is on the screen. You Google me, you wouldn't miss me. There's drabooks.com that's being developed to put all my books there. hopefully Amazon is going to have some of my work. LinkedIn is there. Just Google me, and then you'll find me.
All right. Well, Dr. Abe, thanks so much for your time. This has been a fantastic conversation. I look forward to talking with you again shortly in the future.
Travis, thank you for what you do, and appreciate you.